Dear learners, I hope all of you are fine. I'm also fine with the grace of Almighty Lord. Dear learners, I hope always you are staying home and completing lesson properly and following our class regularly. We are giving our class regularly in YouTube, Facebook, and in our websites. Dear learners, you try to follow the class and complete your lesson staying home. If you face any problem, send us message so we will give you your solutions. Dear learners, you try to solve your problems. If you complete your lesson, then you will have a good marks in your exam. Dear learners, in the last sessions, I gave you a class on some rules of speech. Today, I'm going to give you a class on transformation of sentence. This is simple, complex, and compound. I have also taught you about finite verb, non-finite verb, clause, phrase, and verbal noun. Dear learners, today I will teach you how to change simple to complex and complex to compound and compound to simple and complex. Dear learners, you try to follow my class attentively. I hope you will have good idea how to change simple to complex and complex to compound. So look at the book very carefully, and I'm going to make you understand how the transformations. Dear learners, you can see here the three parts in our table on the board. There are three parts, like a simple, complex, and compound. If you have in spite of or despite in simple sentence, you will have to use, instead of in spite of or despite, you will have to use do or although in complex sentence. And in compound sentence, you will have to use but instead of do or although. Dear learners, in simple sentence, you must have a finite verb or a clause. In complex sentence, you must have more than one clauses. In compound sentence, you will have coordinative conjunctions and two independent clauses. In complex sentence, you must have one independent clause and one subordinate clause. Dear learners, now I'm going to make you understand, giving you example. Dear learners, in complex sentence, you can see here that though he was honest. This is called the subordinate clause. Though he was honest is a subordinate clause. And then you will have to put comma, then you will write the principal clause. So the sentence is though he was honest, he was not respected. There are two clauses. In simple sentence, you will have to change it a single clause. And the dependent clause will be transferred into a phrase. Dear learners, you follow me. I'm going to make you understand about it. So you will have to write here at first, in spite of or despite. You can reuse one of them. In spite of, then you can write here there is the same subject, so you can omit another subject. So you can write here in spite of being, then ing will the be verb, the base form is be, in spite of being honest. Then you will have to put comma, that he was not respected. Dear learners, you can see here that in spite of being honest, he was not respected. Here I have used here in spite of. Then I have used here the ing with the base form of be verb is being, and then honest, and you will have to put comma. Then you will have to write the independent clause. So in spite of being honest, he was not respected. You can write this in a different way. In spite of his honesty, you can use the noun form of the adjective. In spite of his honesty, he was not respected. You can write also in this way. At the time of changing it into complex sentence, compound sentence, you will have to use comma in the instead of, you will have to, at the time of changing into compound sentence, you will have to use but instead of comma, and you will omit though. So the sentence will be here. You can see that the sentence is here: he was honest, but he was not respected. As the subject are same, so you can omit a subject here. He was honest but was not respected. Dear learners, I hope it is clear to you. Now I am going to give you more example to make it more clear. Dear learners, here you can see the second sentence. Despite his illness, he went to the market. Here you can see that there is despite, so you will have to use here, at the time of changing into complex, you will have to use though or although. In compound sentence, you will have to use but. Dear learners, let's see here. Dear learners, you can see here that he went to the market though he was ill. Though he was ill, he went to the market. So I have used here at first the independent clause, so I haven't put here comma. So if you write the independent clause in the beginning, at the beginning, so you will have to not use comma. Then I have used a subordinate clause though he was ill. So if you have despite his illness, or if you have in spite of his illness, you can use here in spite of or despite. Then you will have to follow this rule. Dear learners, let's follow the compound sentence. Dear learners, you can see here that I have changed it into compound sentence. He was ill but went to the market. Dear learners, the simple sentence is in spite of or despite his illness, he went to the market. And in compound complex sentence, he went to the market though he was ill. In compound sentence, you can see here that he was ill but went to the market. So if you have this type of words like in spite of or say despite simple sentence, you will have to use here though or although in complex sentence, and you will have to use but in compound sentence. If you have but in compound sentence, then at the time of changing into complex, you will have to use though or although. Then you will have to make two clauses. One will be independent and another will be subordinate clause. In simple sentence, sentence will be independent clause and another will be phrase. Dear learners, I hope you have understood it clearly. Now I'm going to give you another example. Dear learners, if you have because of in simple sentence, you will have to use as, since or because in complex sentence, and you will have to use and in compound sentence. So if you have an and one clause indicate the reason and another is result, then you will have to use as, since or because at the time of changing to complex sentence. At the time of changing into simple sentence, then you will have to use the because of. Dear learners, I'm going to give you example on this rule. Dear learners, you can see here that as he was honest. In complex sentence, as he was honest, we respect him. Dear learners, you can see that in complex sentence, as he was honest, we respected him. In complex sentence, there is a principal clause and another is subordinate clause. At the time of changing into simple sentence, you will have to use here because of. Then you will have to make it phrase. Because of, the subject is different, so you will have to take here he is. Then because of his being honest, then the independent clause will remain same. We respected him. Dear learners, you can see here that because of his being honest, we respected him. At the time of changing into compound sentence, you will have to write here. Dear learners, you can see in the compound sentence that he was honest and we respected him. Here you can see that he was honest and we respected him in the compound sentence. I've used here and in the compound sentence. Dear learners, I'm going to give you more example on this to make it clear to you. Dear learners, in compound sentence, you can see that he was poor and he could not buy his food. Here is a compound sentence because there is used here and there are two independent clauses. So he was poor and he could not buy his food. Is a compound sentence. At the time of changing it to complex sentence, you can write also he could not buy his food. If you write this clause in the beginning of the sentence, he could not buy his food, then as or since he was poor is a complex sentence because I have used here as, and this is the subordinate clause and this is called the principal clause. So if you have a subordinate clause and a principal clause, then this is called a complex sentence. A complex sentence must have a subordinate clause and a principal clause. Dear learners, now I'm going to change it into simple sentence. At the time of changing to simple sentence, you will have to use it because of. Because of his poverty, you can use the noun form of the adjective. But if you want to use the adjective, then you can write here because of his being poor or because of his poverty. You can write one of them. Then you will have to put comma. Then you will write independent clause. He could not buy his food. Dear learners, the sentence is here. You can see that he was poor and he could not buy his food. He could not buy his food as he was poor. Because of his poverty, he could not buy his food. Dear learners, I have discussed here two rules of simple, complex, and compound. In the first rules, I have tried to make you understand about if you have though or although in complex sentence, you will have to use in spite of or despite in simple sentence, and you will have to use but in compound sentence. And if you have in complex sentence as since or because, the one clause expresses the reason and another is the result. At the time of or in these situations, you will have to use because of in simple sentence. Then you will have to write independent clause. And at the time of changing into compound sentence, you will have to use and if you have as, since, or when, or because in complex sentence. So I hope it is clear to you. You try to practice staying home. Then I will give you another two rules in the next class. Dear learners, you try to always practice this. And if you face any problem, send us message. I will try to solve the problem. So bye bye.